Good morning. We'll call this hearing to order. This is a public hearing for ordinance 2026-001 and for the proclamation restricting open and controlled burns in the unincorporated areas of Sierra County. Mr. Attorney, you got anything to share with us?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I actually just turned over to Ryan.
Okay. Good. Go ahead, Ryan.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Manager Vaughn. This morning I'm here to present some raw data from our National Weather Service, U.S. Drought Monitor, and some other historical data that we've been kind of witnessing throughout the county with our fuels and our drought conditions. I've got a slide up there just for everyone's reference. It's also in the packets that you have. The U.S. Drought Monitor, Sierra County has been in extreme drought for several years now. 2 years ago we got an exceptional drought, but these drought conditions are ever so changing our environment. Everything from our wells to our agricultural industry to just our fuel moisture content in our forests, even in our low level elevation with like 4,500 foot grasslands and desert areas. It's putting us in a very kind of a bind this season. Wildland season has started early. We've had fires up in near Guadalupe, San Miguel County, Quake County. I don't know if people have been watching the news, but you know, we've had Oklahoma had it, Texas, now Nebraska's got a very large one, South Dakota did too. So fires usually start within the Central Plains, move to the southeast, the southwest, and then they'll move up north. But we're experiencing those fires up north right now too. Our drought conditions, usually so people can understand, we're near a D2 severity. What it does is things you can kind of see up there where burn restrictions will come into place, fuels mitigation projects will happen in D2. We've been doing those for the last 2 years. We've been working on Poverty Creek, Kingston areas, and now we just had actually let's see, Sierra Soil and Forest Service just did a very large project on Highway 59 from mile marker 0 to about 8.5. That was a large fuels reduction project to cut a swath along the highway 60 foot off either edge. That creates a really nice fire break, and it's also a safety corridor for our first responders, because everyone knows that drives that road is pretty tight, and you have livestock, elk, natural wildlife walk out. But it's a really good swath. I'm gonna wait till they clean it up a little more, and I'll have some pictures to present next meeting. They're gonna work on phase 2, which will go down through Poverty Creek and then get the funding to go all the way to Beaverhead. That'll really help out our kind of tri-county area.
When will phase 2 start, Ryan? I'm sorry.
Sir?
When will phase 2 start?
They just secured the rest of the funding. They're working through the RFP through the contractor, and I'm waiting on a few more user agreements with private property owners, because it goes through Poverty Pines and then Black Range Heights. That's all on the east side, so everyone's on board with it, which will be, it's a nice
Really
project.
nice.
It's quite intense to see how much fuel they've removed out of there. And it's been a good thing for folks too. They've been hauling out a lot of firewood, a lot of locals. So it says the fuel's not going to waste. But as you can see, we're in D2. Dust storms occur. We see that haze in the air right now. That is from La Playa down in Lordsburg. That is a lot of dust being swept up there and being pushed north. That's also from some just poor air quality from our southern neighbors and through Mexico too. Everyone right now is actually going to be going into, and I say everyone as far as like Forest Service is going to implement level 1 fire restrictions March 23rd. Yesterday we actually went into high fire danger. If the indices stay the same, by the end of this weekend, Forest Service will be in very high conditions in the Forest Service. Neighboring counties are going into burn restrictions. Grant County is going to follow suit on March 23rd. Catron County is going to follow suit. Socorro follows state forestry, but they have a little bit different guidelines when they do implement burn restrictions. They kind of wait till all the counties do a restriction and then they do it, because they don't have a tiered approach. They're all in or all out on burn restrictions. So these Forest Service has a tiered approach. And as you can see, like we've been in this position for quite some time, so it's inevitable. And I don't know if anyone's noticed, fruit trees bloomed at the end of February. Mesquites are blooming right now. Usually that happens in May. So that shows you we have an early onset of a long hot summer. We have normally low precipitation levels and above normal temperatures. So So I want to protect the citizens of Sierra County. I also want to protect our neighbors too, right? And it's not because I don't want people not to burn, it's because I'm trying to protect us. Because one spark can create a pretty catastrophic burn, and it's uncontrollable at that point. There's no forecasting for recovery of these humidities and these moistures at this point. These pictures on this slide represent the Gila National Forest through Arizona, Grant County, Hidalgo, all the way up through there in our side. The beetle kill and the disease kill on these trees is quite significant this year, therefore adding to our increased fire risk. It's amazing to see. I don't know if the quality on these pictures you can see, anything that has a red kind of hickory look to it is a dead tree. And they're more following suit, whether it be disease or beetle kill or drought conditions. It's pretty rough. I was on the Gila this last weekend. It's just amazing how dry it is. The winds were in single-digit humidities, and the tree kill was pretty exponential. You can see by this graph right there, the tree mortality rate in 2024, and it's climbing in 2025 and 2026. This puts our residents or homeowners at risk. This puts our firefighters, first responders at risk. And I present this today because I want to keep us safe, our residents safe, our first responders safe. And everyone else's, their commission meetings are kind of rolling into, or neighboring counties are rolling into the end of March or very beginning of April. I figured it would be appropriate to tee this up now, because our next meeting would be April 21st, so we'd be a little bit behind the curve from everyone else. That's all the data I have at this time. Fire behavior, fire weather behavior is increasing every week. The forecast models are saying it's going to get severe within the next week. But I'll stand for any questions if anyone has any questions or concerns.
Commissioners, questions? Ryan, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tom.
What size diameter tree are they cutting? This is still a shaded fuel break, isn't it?
So on the Highway 59 project, the fuel prescription changed. It went, it was anything under 9 inches, now it changed to 12 inches. Anything below 12 inches is getting masticated or limbed up to 10 feet. That's including the oaks and the PJ, the conifer and the pine. But yeah, it's a lot of fuel removed, and actually benefits well too for like landing zones, for helicopters, the safety corridor, the fire break. It's a pretty amazing project. I'm gonna go up again this weekend and take some more pictures. It just looked a little rough because they haven't done a full mastication project, so we're just like a lot of scrap on the ground. But once they finish chipping all that up, it'll be a good, moisture barrier for that ground and promote the native grasses. But it's an amazing project. I'm excited to see it go all the way to Beaverhead.
Good.
Commissioner Jones, did you have some questions?
Yeah, right, so you know me, I always call about my farmers burning. And I was trying to look through this, I know it was talking there, are we putting any restriction on the ag stuff?
The restrictions currently right now, so there's been in the past it was like farmers are exempt. Now, in the last 2 years, I've done a lot of education with the farmers, and I want to ensure that they have a so-called burn plan, right? They have available water, they have some labor there, they have a backhoe, and their fields are either freshly disked. That way, they're not just lighting something off and hoping that it's gonna, contain itself. Doing really well with our agricultural producers in Sierra County. They call me, we discuss it, I go out and look at it, and I let them burn even if it's on no burn days. That would be considered a fire plan. On the burn restriction would require a permitting process, which would be the exact same thing. Consult with me, I'll go out, take a look at it, make sure they have adequate suppression capabilities, labor, backhoe or skid steer or something to contain that. And it's good too, it's an education, piece to all of us.
Well, I know the burning stuff is an issue, but have we had major problems with farmers burning and burning down houses and stuff, or?
In Array, we have historical challenges with certain producers because they will just not call it in, and too is when they don't call it in, and it'll typically run across their property and into the neighbors, and then they call out our fire resources. Sometimes it's okay, but homes and infrastructure, luckily not, you know, all spread out, they are out there, and most of the fields are tilled and freshly, you know, disced at this time, but we do have an issue in the rig. There's a lot of producers that just say, I'm not gonna call it in, but I try to tell everyone, they're 100% liable if it goes on the neighbor's property. It's their home or their fences or their agricultural land. They've been pretty good, you know, if you talk to people and educate them and you know, discuss with them that I don't know how deep your pockets are, but I don't want this to run on you and you be financially responsible for it. Everyone's very understandable, as long as you talk to them, you know, it works out well.
Yeah, and like I said, I understand we've got, you know, wildfire issues and prairies and stuff like that, but historically, I once in a while you'll hear about a field getting away. I do agree that if you're gonna burn, you should notify dispatch, but there's definitely been a disconnect between dispatch and the folks that have been calling in. The ones that I've called you about, dispatch has said, no, you can't burn. And that's what, you know, and you know you've helped me on a couple of those. And so I'm uncomfortable just adding another regulation to a community that isn't a problem. I mean, sure, there's been some, but our big problems are the forest fires, the prairie fires and stuff like that. You just don't historically see it. And I think sometimes the farmers are big, well, right now they're burning pecans, right?
Yes.
And next to fields, is that an issue?
No, they call in, you know,
Right, but I mean, when this ban goes in, are you gonna go down and take a look at them and say, oh, well, yeah, you can burn or you can't burn, or?
correct, yeah, and I work with them, and I'm very familiar with their property and their operation. So, several of them call me weekly, and say, hey, are the conditions favorable? And I was like, you know, you have this in place, you have a burn plan, you consult with me, we're gonna go ahead and let you burn it.
Does the Forest Service ever consult you when they burn half the state down?
They notify us, they notify us, sir, but, just for smoke conditions, but, you know, sir, at a federal level, you know, they notify us, which is, I'm glad they do that. You know, it's on federal lands, it's as long as it doesn't infringe on private property, then I have, you know, no jurisdictional authority.
I know, that was just a statement, but, again, I wanna support the burn ban, but I just, this adding a layer to people who are trying to make a living out there that aren't a problem bothers me.
So this burn ban isn't targeted at our agricultural producers. And historically, we do one in about April, May every year. It also helps us tee up any fireworks restrictions when we come into that point. But this is more targeted to our normal residents that wanna go out, that are communicating well, are educated about the piece, and it happens more than people realize, especially here in the city limits too, where someone says, I was burning weeds, everything was out, 4 hours later, the garage caught on fire. And it happens pretty routinely here within the city limits and on these unincorporated areas of the county. With our dry conditions, it takes one ember to sit inside a piece of siding next to your slab, it'll fester for a few hours and then it'll come back up. This is not to target anyone about inhibiting their production. It's just an educational piece, and people are doing really good now about understanding why we have one.
But education isn't saying, hey, you gotta call Ryan and have him come out and look at this for you. That isn't education, that's a permitting process. That's a delay in activity.
Well, that delay could mitigate and minimize a lot of risk and things that can happen if someone just lights it off.
So I probably would support it. And as having the dubious distinction of the first burning citation issued in Sierra County, I understand. But anyway,
It happened last year. They cited several people because they routinely were burning.
well, this is a joke, we went back years ago when they first started, so.
Brian, relate what happened in Columbus Creek with an ag burn.
We had a gentleman that leased a piece of property and was doing a controlled burn but did not call it in. The weather conditions were pretty much exactly what they are now, extremely dry, low humidity, and a little bit of breeze. It took off on them, got into the neighbor's area, on the neighbor's property, which there was a flat powder storage shed there. And thank goodness we had 4 different departments show up pretty fast because of that risk. And if that shed would have gone off, it would have done some significant damage to numerous homes in that neighborhood. But this just happens when people, historically, they say, oh, I'm gonna clean my fields and I'm gonna burn them off. I try to tell people all the time, let's work on doing that in December, January, 1st of February. But our conditions in this drought is, it's closing in the window. We need to get that done in the winter, but people think since it's nicer weather, I'm gonna burn now, but conditions aren't favorable. And fire behavior just increases so significantly, so.
Well, with that situation, that individual was burning by himself. He had no plan. He was just spreading fire.
Correct.
And then it got out of control and he went, oh my goodness, I need help. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah, and the individual now communicates with me. He's aware of fire conditions. I've met with them. I've actually walked out with them and showed them how to burn appropriately, safely. So it takes time. It's not gonna happen overnight, but I really like seeing the understanding and the working relationships that it does build through our actions.
You know, a long time ago, 80% of the fires in the West were by lightning. Now that's reversed. 80% of the fires in the West, not just in forest, but across the West in unincorporated areas are human caused. And I think that as we continue into a drying trend and the volatility of fuels and the rapid expansion of fire, we need to help folks understand and educate them. And this isn't a big brother deal. This is a safety deal to help folks out and to prevent loss of property, structures, and life. And I think it's a real deal. So we need to look at a new day and see what we can do to help people, but at the same time keep our rural communities safe.
I agree, sir. It's never a targeted attempt or an agenda. It's to minimize risk and keep our residents safe.
Mr. Chairman, Ryan, tell me exactly what a farmer does if he wants to do something.
No contact, usually they're known to contact dispatch and they'll patch.
What under this ordinance, what are they supposed to do?
In this ordinance, they always call dispatch and say, is it a burn day or no burn day? And they say it's a no burn day. But you can contact me if there's favorable conditions. Now, if it's a red flag day, so here's the threshold that everyone uses, 15-15. If it's below 15% humidity, no burn. If the winds are above 15 miles an hour, no burn. So there's that threshold. We always do that. Forestry uses that, State Fire, U.S. Forest Service uses that for the prescribed burning. So then they patch them into me. This ordinance actually constitutes a lot more work on my behalf because I'm doing a lot more fielding phone calls, going out, meeting with individuals to make sure that, they're gonna do something safely and properly. So it constitutes more work for me, but in the long run, it's better because it's more interaction with individuals and it helps out. It's a lot more interaction. But if they call dispatch and then it's a complete no burn day, then no one's getting a permit. If the conditions could be favorable, they can consult with me, I'll visit with them, and then issue them a quick permit. I write it on the board, it goes on the board, and sometimes we have 10 to 15 burn permits on the board a day.
What happens when you're not here?
Deputy Travis Atwell will take care of it. And then even if I'm not here, I field these phone calls over the phone most of the time, even if I'm out of pocket or right out of town, so.
That's all I've done.
Okay. Any comments from the public on proposed fire ordinance? Commissioner Hopkins, you got anything?
No, I like to burn, and I see Commissioner Jones's point, but I also see Ryan's. If you call in, you come out and look at it, you might not be able to burn that day, but maybe the next day you can. So, and where I'm gonna be burning, I know nothing's gonna catch on fire because there's nothing around there to catch on fire.
Correct.
What scares me more than the humidity is the wind.
Right.
So if it's windy, you know, I understand the no burn.
And all this is driven by atmospheric conditions, weather patterns. I have zero control of that. And that's the hard part when I tell people. I don't wake up in the morning and say, I don't want people to burn. I wake up and look at 5, 6 different weather apps. I consult with additional agencies, neighboring counties, and I make an educated decision on whether we should burn or not burn that day. It minimizes and mitigates this risk as much as I can.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, Ryan, and those guys out there that've been doing it for 100 years, have been doing it for generations, and they kinda know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And 40 years ago, they didn't anybody tell them when to burn. And I don't think we should now. I think it's a part of an industrial operation, and I think they're capable of doing it, and they have insurance to back it up, and unless you can rid me of the confusion of why I get calls from people saying, hey, we can't burn, they said we can't burn, and you and I've had, 3 or 4 conversations about that, and you fixed it every time, but it's still, we gotta go another hoop that they have to go through, and they ultimately end up burning, so. Anyway, no need to labor it, that's my opinion.
Just as an example, we have agricultural producers that are very good, like you just said, very well educated and know exactly how to burn. And we have some that, 2 years ago, that would light off a 2-acre patch and then spread off into the neighbors. Our resources got called out 6 more additional times because it rekindled. So I can't agree that all agricultural producers are savvy at burning. So the ones that are, great, I speak to them, we're compliant, and we work together to get a permit. It's the ones that go rogue and light things off, right? And I don't want someone to light something off, per se, your neighbor, and then get into your fields and ruin a crop, or maybe infringe on your assets, your structures. So it's not for our folks that are savvy about this. It's educational piece to minimize risk. I'll stand for any questions.
No questions? We'll call this hearing to a close. We'll start our regular meeting at 10 o'clock.
Chairman, Commissioners, Manager Vaughn. Not a whole lot to report. Detention operations are currently running under normal conditions. We have interviewed for that one vacant post, and we're moving forward. And any updates on hiring, I'll present on the next meeting. And with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions, gentlemen? Thank you, Patrick.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff Baker?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Item Manager, a few things to report on. We have submitted our Law Enforcement Protection Fund, got that in, it was due by the 31st. Got with Williamsburg yesterday, got theirs in, and then we'll have Elephant Buttes in on Friday. So we have that in line. Also got the paperwork in to receive the Law Enforcement Recruiting Fund grant. It's one of the LERF grants from New Mexico Department of Public Safety, so some of our guys were eligible for that. Once we get that in, that'll get paid out to them whenever their date comes up that they're eligible. We did fill the one vacancy we have, so we're fully staffed once again with all certified deputies. The newest one's in field training now. And then working on our budgets, trying to get ready for upcoming budget meetings as we move forward. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions, gentlemen? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
You bet. Nikki?
Morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Manager Vaughn. Not much going on right now. We don't have a SCRTA board meeting this month. I am busy. We're going on 5 years, almost 5 years here now. So I'm in the middle of doing grants for upgrades for our 911 system, our recording system. So it's time for a whole new refresh so we could be on top, and including our radios. So that's about all I got.
Questions? Thank you, Nikki. Keith?
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners, Manager Vaughn. Been a pretty normal month. We had a couple more applications for addressing, one pending for the claim of exemption that was just approved in the consent agenda, so we'll get that one finalized. We did do the road mileage update for this year, which is on the agenda later this morning, as well as we have a freeholders report from our Trout Road petition. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Thank you. Manager Vaughn?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I do have a couple items for facilities. They've been busy working on the Array baseball field. They have their opening next week. They did install some new red dirt that we got hauled in, so that was good. He was over at the fairgrounds just a moment ago, letting me know that the new countertop has been delivered, and it looks like they're gonna be installing the stainless steel countertop today or tomorrow. They still are going through the final punch list items, but other than that, it's pretty completed. They were working on the retention pond, changing some rocks out. After that, we will have a fence installed around the pond, and we will move on to the next phases of that project. As for me, we've got a couple items. We've got the Earth Day cleanup coming up on April 24th. There is a survey that is active out there for you to fill out if you notice a place where there may be some trash that needs to be picked up. It is on our website, on our Facebook. It's also on TextMyGov. Also, we did have a volunteer sign-up form that is available, so if someone is interested in volunteering, they can sign up to volunteer. Thankfully, June from Tree or Sea is running a volunteer program for us. I'm very thankful for that. We did get from Aravon some donated trash bags and litter pickers, so that was good, about $500 worth of stuff, so that was really nice. We are working on all the locations of where we're gonna place dumpsters. Currently, there will be quite a few dumpsters placed at the fairgrounds. City of Tiercy will be placing some, as well as the county, so that will cover the Williamsburg and Tiercy area. We will be doing free dump days at all of our transfer stations. There will not be a free dump day at the City of Tiercy, but there will be dumpsters available. We have started the FY27 budget process, so we'll start our meetings next week. And as Billy mentioned, the TPF, we're gonna have a resolution for that next month. We are still waiting on the state land office for the transfer of AO13 to the state. We are still keeping it up as much as we can to this point. They asked for some more information. I sent that a couple weeks ago, so we're just waiting on them. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions? Thank you. Commissioner, do you have anything to report? I have just one thing. We had a request from a group in Socorro County to support a resolution for them to take control of the Camino Real Museum that was up there by the old Santa Fe Diner, about exit 115, I believe. And earlier, several months ago, we determined that we would support whatever Socorro County did, but because the facility was not in Socorro County, we would not pursue that resolution. That's consistent with where we are now, and I just think that we'll see what Socorro County does and follow their lead on that. So I don't have anything else. We'll move on.
Mr. Chairman, did we formally support it as a commission or just?
No, we
Yeah,
didn't.
okay.
We did not. We deferred any resolution
Right.
depending on Socorro County for their action. We'll move on to the Affordable Housing Act and Ordinance Plan. Manager Ball, Attorney Peto, and our guests.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce Sonia Unrau from the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority. She's going to be making a presentation on the Affordable Housing Act and how we can consider that in Sierra County and how we can implement that here at Greer County.
Welcome, Sonia.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. As David mentioned, I am representing Housing New Mexico, the state's Affordable Housing Office. We, as an organization, do a wide range of activities ranging from community development, home rehabilitation programs, financing large multifamily developments, and also funding homeownership, first mortgage, and down payment assistance programs for low and moderate income households. Also, under our purview is monitoring and oversight of the Affordable Housing Act. And before I get into the details of that, I just wanted to share a couple of key indicators related to housing needs in Sierra County. First and foremost, over the last 5 years, Sierra County has actually grown by 4.3%, which far outpaced the state. Median household income is about a little over $20,000 lower than that of the state at $41,600. In housing, we often look at cost burden as an indicator of need, and cost burden refers to the threshold for cost burden in housing is when a household pays more than 30% of their income towards their rent or mortgage payment. That's usually suggests it might be difficult for those households to make ends meet based on how much they're paying for rent or their mortgage. In Sierra County, cost burden is nearly 38%. That rate for New Mexico is 45%. When we drill into renter households, and those renter households earning less than $50,000 a year, the rate of cost burden far increases, usually due, particularly because of lower incomes, to nearly 67%, and that rate for New Mexico is 78%. In Sierra County, the median home sale price last year was $195,000, which is lower than the state of New Mexico, and that figure for Sierra County is maybe a little difficult to say it's a true reflection of the market just because there were much less home sales here compared to other counties. And just to understand the median income, or the income needed to afford the median price home in Sierra County, that $195,000 is $63,300, which again is about $20,000 lower than the median income for the county. And all this just points to the need for investment in housing generally, and more particularly for housing to support lower moderate income residents. So getting into the meat of the Affordable Housing Act. The Affordable Housing Act is a constitutional amendment that exempts government donations, particularly local governments, state governments, and a few other entities from the anti-donation clause in the state of New Mexico, basically authorizing public-private partnerships for affordable housing. These partnerships can mean a local government donates land to a developer for affordable housing. And affordable housing, by our definition, is housing restricted to households earning 150% of less of area median income. So, you think of the median income is about $40,000 in Socorro County, so it would be housing for people earning about $60,000 or less approximately. Some local governments use the Affordable Housing Act to waive impact fees for certain developments. They might also provide financing for certain new construction or even rehabilitation or an affordable housing program. That might be a home rehabilitation program serving seniors or veterans in need. And they might also choose to use the Affordable Housing Act to abate certain impact fees related to development. Now, what isn't the Affordable Housing Act? The Affordable Housing Act really is just that exception to the anti-donation clause. It really simply authorizes these types of public-private partnership. It does not supersede the New Mexico Governmental Conduct Act, the Administrative Code, State Board of Finance rules if there's layered financing into it, and any local government ordinance or capital outlay rules. Increasingly, we're seeing local governments use capital outlay for affordable housing. Those rules must be layered on to any other restrictions that come with a funding source. The Affordable Housing Act is also not related to procurement. Local governments must follow their procurement codes when selecting perhaps a developer to make a donation to, perhaps a nonprofit partnership to invest public funds for certain affordable housing activities. And the Affordable Housing Act also doesn't regulate how federal funds are used. Federal funds are separate and they must follow those federal guidelines. Just to understand the impact of the Affordable Housing Act in the state, since its passage in 2004, local governments have donated more than $40 million to affordable housing. Admittedly, this has been primarily in the metro areas, although increasingly we're seeing smaller rural local governments take advantage of this to really address the affordable housing needs in their community that they know are there, and prioritizing what they realize they need to invest in. The Affordable Housing Act does require that a local government have an affordable housing plan. The Affordable Housing Act includes an extensive list of indicators and metrics and analysis required in the plan, and broadly speaking, it includes a community and housing profile, which compiles demographic and housing market statistics, a housing needs assessment that looks at what exists in a community and what a community can expect to need to accommodate growth or changing populations. In many areas, we see the number of senior households increasing, so local governments are thinking, how can we support our seniors age in place and stay locally? It also includes the requirement for a land use and policy review. I will say this is primarily a problem in Santa Fe and Albuquerque, overly restrictive land use policy that actually prevents development. In many cases, we see our rural communities have more flexibility that are actually more conducive to building and rehabilitation. And finally, this plan must include certain goals and policies and quantifiable objectives. Typically, when local governments carry out these plans, they do public engagement to understand what the community feels like their priority, and that allows governing bodies and leaderships to identify where they might want to make an affordable housing investment. These affordable housing plans are typically carried out by consultants, so local governments will issue an RFP and contract with an engineering or planning firm, and we have a number in New Mexico that have quite a bit of experience, so no trouble getting bids, competitive bids on these. Some local governments choose to develop them in-house, but the requirements of these plans per statute is quite expensive, so it can be difficult and a little more lengthy to do in-house. My colleague Stephanie has helped a number of local governments identify data sources so they can do it in-house, but the process is about 4 times as long. The process, these plans must first be submitted to myself and Stephanie for review and approval. Once we say it's met all these requirements, the plan must be adopted via resolution. And at that point, you've satisfied half the requirements to do affordable housing. So the second phase, once a plan is complete, this needs assessment is an affordable housing ordinance. And this is your local enabling legislation. So this is the county commission saying this is how we're going to do affordable housing. This is also highly prescriptive per the regulations, so we've drafted a template that local governments can pretty much just take and just replace Sierra County and all these blanks. And what it does is it first establishes the rules for affordable housing, which primarily is your income limit. So previously, we were limited as a state to serving households earning no more than 120% area median income. That's since changed to help more working families qualify for these type of programs to be 150% area median income. It also defines the process for selecting a qualified grantee. Qualifying grantees are your nonprofit private partners that might actually carry out the affordable housing on your behalf, and certain other requirements of the act. So once that ordinance is drafted, it's also required to be reviewed by Housing New Mexico for approval and then can actually be enacted. I've mentioned qualifying grantee a few times, and I've alluded to, these are the partners that will actually carry out the affordable housing. It could be a housing agency, it could be your local housing authority. More often than not, we see that it's a for-profit or nonprofit organization that has experience in affordable housing. We have a strong network in New Mexico, and I think increasingly the state has put more money in affordable housing, which has only served to grow that list of providers. Just a few examples, a qualifying grantee could be a homeless shelter or an organization providing services to address the homelessness community. It could be an organization that conducts home repair for low and moderate income people. It could also be a more traditional developer. It could also be an individual. So there are some local governments that operate affordable housing programs in-house. You can apply for emergency home repair through a certain county, and they'll look at your home, they'll income qualify and say, okay, yeah, you do need a new water heater so that you can stay warm through the winter or something like that. I won't get into it, but the Affordable Housing Act stipulates what these organizations must demonstrate, mainly that they're legitimate, they're registered organizations, their nonprofit status is up to date, they have strong financial management as demonstrated by an audit, etc. And a nonprofit must, of course, be up to date on their 501c3 designation and in good standing. How to qualify a grantee? Looking at non-individuals, these are your nonprofits and for-profit entities. So it starts by issuing a procurement process. Local governments have their own way of doing it, and so long as it's consistent with your policies and procedures, we're fine with that. But the local government must provide a certification to Housing New Mexico that this organization meets the requirements on the previous slide. In terms of an individual, a local government must have an affordable housing program. Typically, we look at program guidelines, or it might be an ordinance or resolution, but doesn't necessarily have to be, but something, some form of documentation that says, okay, we're going to develop a home repair program for our disabled veterans in our community. They must be earning no more than 80% area median income, and we are going to make this a forgivable loan that's forgiven after 5 years. So something that details your program parameters to say this program that we're operating in-house meets the requirements. And we are happy to always provide feedback on the development as well as the compliance of those program guidelines. And when we're selecting a qualified grantee, when you're looking at a developer or nonprofit, typically you might issue, if it's the developer you're looking for, you might issue an RFP so that you have a competitive process. to know that you're selecting the best offerer. Sometimes you could issue a notice of funding availability, which is a non-competitive process. If you want to make multiple awards to various nonprofits, this could work. Or you could just have this affordable housing program if you intend to serve people in-house. And these, there's also a certification that's required for this application process. That's something that Housing New Mexico would work with county staff on satisfying these requirements. The Affordable Housing Act does include parameters on affordability period, and this is largely to protect public investment. So if let's say a program wants to give $10,000 in down payment assistance, that $10,000 in down payment assistance cannot be forgiven in a period less than 5 years. You could make it unforgivable, but it must remain affordable for no less than 5 years. For larger developments where local governments are saying, okay, we're gonna give you this land is valued at $150,000, this property must remain affordable or income restricted for no less than 20 years. Often what we see local governments do is say, we're gonna give you a 50-year lease, we're gonna give you a 100-year lease. So that far exceeds that minimum 20-year affordability requirement. There is some flexibility. We had a program where we installed ramps for mobility impaired individuals. These ramps were about, they ranged in price from $1,000 to $2,000, and it was often in mobile homes, so we decided because of practical implementation reasons, we did not put a lien on these homes. We said, you are certainly the lowest income level and it just doesn't merit that level of compliance. But that has to be justified and documented. And finally, each year, we require that local governments report on any donations they make. As the state puts capital outlay and other funding into affordable housing that might flow through the county, if the county is the entity receiving and making the awards to either a nonprofit, to its program, a developer, the county is required to report on that. The reporting isn't terribly onerous, it's simply identifying who received the funds, what type of investment was it land, was it financing, value, when did the project close, and how many people were served. And that's just an annual reporting requirement. And looking ahead for Sierra County, before Sierra County can really do anything, it needs that plan and ordinance in place. With that plan, the county can start considering what are the community needs we want to address and what resources do we have. Do we have a small amount of general fund we can use to pilot something and for what purpose? Then it gets into the weeds, the nuts and bolts of developing program parameters and potentially hiring or selecting a partner to administer it. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Question, Jim?
I've got a question. What counties have already approved this Affordable Housing Act to the plan and ordinance?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner.
Chair for that.
Okay. Commissioner Hopkins,
Thank you.
I don't know exactly how many counties across New Mexico. There's about close to 40 local governments that have these plans. And I can follow up with David on exactly which entities have done so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple. You talked about abating local fees like impact fees and stuff like that. Is that something that would be reimbursable from the state? Is that what you're saying? So let's say, I think Las Cruces, some of their fees are like up to 12 grand a lot or something like that. So is that something that would be abatable but reimbursed to the county from, or would that be just something we would just waive?
Commissioner Jones, so the state wouldn't reimburse it. Las Cruces is a good example because they say if you build a single family home that must be sold to somebody lower moderate income, developer pays that fee up front, that $12,000 tie-in, and then the city reimburses it, but the city isn't eligible for reimbursement by the state, and they developed a certain list of criteria that developers must fulfill in order to claim that reimbursement.
Okay. So, yeah, so it's just a cost to us if it makes it legal to do.
Correct.
And then on the I had a piece here about 20% short on the income level, so the median income in Sierra County, according to your numbers, is 41,000. And the needed is 63,000. So that delta between that is anything below the 63, is that correct?
Commissioner Jones, that's correct. That's saying in order to be able to afford that $195,000 house, you would be presumed to need about $63,000. And we take into account, I think the interest rate assumption we use on that is about 6% right now. It assumes 5% down payment assistance, mortgage principal insurance, and a couple other factors to back into that $63,000 figure. A household earning $41,000 in theory could qualify for a home, likely a lower priced home, or perhaps with more down payment assistance. It's just to give them some perspective on what it would take to buy that $195,000 home.
And is there restrictions on building construction? So is mobile units acceptable, modular, is there restrictions on that?
Commissioner Jones, there's no restrictions on what type of housing. Our first mortgage products, we can use them to finance first mortgage for a low-income buyer if the unit is on a permanent foundation. We have seen local governments actually, for example, the Village of Angel Fire has a challenge retaining and recruiting a public workforce because there's just no housing stock in the area. So they're basically developing a mobile home park, for lack of a better word, development, subdivision, and those units I do not think are on a permanent foundation. So the design standards are at the discretion of the county.
But that may be on a floating scale on the requirement, the timeline requirement. I think it was 10 years as a minimum.
That's correct.
And then just the final question. So if the county had property and they say wanted to develop that for low-income housing, they would be able to donate the property to a developer, a selected developer. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct. That's exactly what the Affordable Housing Act is designed to do. So once you have that plan ordinance, you say, we have this property, and I'll say we've had some local governments are like, well, we have this great property, but there's nothing, like it's far from utilities, it's just raw land. It might be more difficult to have a developer come in if it's not close to tying in, just because those initial infrastructure costs are so expensive. But you might issue a request for a proposal saying, we will donate this land if you provide us about a competitive proposal to build this many units on this property. The developer is on the hook for securing all other financing. They would probably come to us for that piece of it and then move forward with the project, but that's correct.
And the county wouldn't realize any return on that other than having housing.
Correct.
Thanks.
We're in a, probably not unique, but a really different situation from even the communities in Sierra County. We don't have any zoning restrictions in the county, and that's because the people want it that way. You know, I think it was 2014, our median income was 29,000 in the county. I'm glad to see it's gone up to 41, but that's still pretty low. We've got a lot of things coming into the county, from the copper mine down by Hillsboro to the spaceport to developments around Elephant View. But the county doesn't really have very much land that would by any means be developable. So what can the county do? I mean, we've also got a limited budget. We have some reserves, but I think the commission's gonna be hard pressed to start donating money to housing opportunities. What in this development of this plan is gonna help us draw low-income housing so that we can bring people in. You know, we don't keep 3-4% of our kids, they graduate high school, they go elsewhere to find a good paying job. And we would love to have more kids stay at home. So when we go through this exercise, what do we want to focus on as a county for our unique and express needs to develop housing to draw folks in and keep them?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think we were pretty encouraged to see the growth rate of the counties, like, which reflects this larger economic development trend in the region. That would be the exercise of developing this affordable housing plan should in theory through these various housing indicators say, oh, we need to support our seniors aging in place, or we need to develop new homes to retain our workforce so that we can continue this growth here. Once you have that needs assessment, it's much easier to determine where to prioritize any resources you may have or seek funding for it. Housing New Mexico, we have various flexible funding sources. Where I would say our lowest entry program is called Housing Innovation. You can apply for $500,000 and you could use it. You do have to have a program in mind. You do have to say, we want to use this for a repair program that we've developed that we will administer, or we want to use this to leverage other funding. The state has funding right now, but it does begin with that plan, which would allow you to better understand the needs and what you should prioritize. And then it's easier to back into the funding sources once you understand the direction you want to go.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I wanted to share a program we just implemented in Valencia County, and that's partly where I came into touch with Sonia and with Mortgage Finance Authority, and then also with the Department of Workforce Solutions. So the Department of Workforce Solutions was charged with a bunch of money. And they were in a rush to get it out the door to make sure that they could support their continued ask the legislature for additional affordable housing. And so we visited with Secretary Nair of Department of Workforce Solutions, and she committed to a $1.8 million grant to Valencia County. And with that grant, the board decided upon the way it was going to deploy that, because it had an affordable housing ordinance in place and a plan in place. They were going to provide for $30,000 notes for down payment assistance for folks who qualify. And so what that allows for then is by June 30th, they have to deploy 60 notes, $30,000 for each of those notes. It has a 20-year affordability period under the ordinance, and not a single dollar is coming from the county. So the county's not putting up any of its land, the county's not putting up any of its money, but what we're doing is we're helping those folks that fall within 100% of AMI to get into a home. And I think that's just, we contracted with an administrator, an affordable housing administrator, who will take care of the reporting for the county. So it's simply a matter of turning that money around and deploying it to the population who needs it. I stand for any questions. One other point that I wanted to add on was that it's not limited to down payment assistance. What I thought was super neat about this program is that you can use it for aging in place or staying in place. So if someone who falls within 150% of the AMI can request that repair for their heater that they can't afford, or their roof, or their whatever else it is, their heater, their furnace, their swamp cooler, whatever. So I mean, I think that these are funds we can deploy in our community that help our community and that aren't coming from this board, coming from the state.
Good question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Dave, along that lines on the down payment assistance, that's not anything that's new, right? But it sounds like there's more funds available.
That's correct.
And so once and I guess it's you, if we put a plan in place, we could simply say, okay, here's a down payment assistance, and the only qualification that the potential purchaser would make that application through the county?
No, so we engage in administrators. This is that nonprofit that Ms. Unruh was referring to. So we contract the administrator. They have an administrative fee. I think it was $500 a loan. And so, and that fee gets paid out of that grant funding that we got through the IGSA with Department of Workforce Solutions. So none of it's coming from the county. It's going to all come from the state.
And then, so they would just, whoever would want to buy a place would have to really qualify for the loan at any rate. correct?
That's correct. So the way I understand the Valencia County program is, Valencia County has procured for this nonprofit that really serves as the comprehensive program administrator. So they are conducting outreach to lenders, and Valencia County required in their contract that homebuyers not be restricted to any particular realtor or lending agency to increase competition. And then this nonprofit layers on the down payment assistance. So, I think the outreach piece is an important part of it, of raising awareness among buyers that this program exists, and it'll exist for about 3 months. And then also, there'll be a lot of lifting because of the timeline in training lenders to qualify prospective buyers. So the county's role in this, I think, was relieving the state of, well, first of all, identifying how they wanted to use the money, and then also selecting that administrator. The county is on the hook for the procurement of that administrator, which I've seen kind of peripherally looks good, and saying, yeah, we are prioritizing this funding for homeownership.
And then one final follow-up, is that only for qualified lending institutions, or can it be sales through real estate contracts?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know that I have an answer for you, Mr. Jones. I might refer that to Ms. Unrau.
That's sort of how Valencia County, however Valencia decided. So the county could say, we want to limit it to traditional mortgage financing, or they want to say, we don't want to restrict buyers. If you're using a real estate contract or other purchase type agreement, you can still qualify. You probably won't get your money back because you'll be in like a fifth lien position at that point, but it would be allowable.
So a developer could come in, so to speak, and build, say, a 20-unit low-income housing subdivision, possibly qualify them for the up to $30,000 down payment. And then in a default, somebody would pick it up, but it could be structured that way where, Horton Homes or somebody came in and said they would.
That's right.
Okay, that's all I want. Sounds good.
Any more questions, gentlemen? Thank you for the presentation. We'll address it in just a few minutes. We'll go to the Board of Finance and the February 2026 reconciliations. Any comments, or is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the February 2026 reconciliation.
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. We have no old business. We will take on direction to staff to publish the title and general subject matter of an affordable housing ordinance. Attorney Baker.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you've heard the presentation from Ms. Unrau regarding the process for implementing an affordable housing plan ordinance, and this would be the first step, is to adopt an ordinance outlining what the broad parameters of that program are. And the Housing New Mexico has prepared and proposed a draft form of ordinance for this board's consideration to direct the publication, subject matter, the title and general subject matter. We have a public hearing at the next county commission meeting, and then the board can consider it for adoption.
We need that in a motion, Mr.
Yes, Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we direct staff to publish title and general subject matter of the affordable housing ordinance. I think that's something that we'll
Investigate. Yep.
investigate.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that motion passes. Thank you, ladies, for coming and presenting to us, and we'll address it at our next commission meeting in April. We'll go on to direction of staff to solicit proposals for the development of an affordable housing plan.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is step 2. So, in order to get our hands on the state funding, we have to have both an ordinance and a plan. As Ms. Unrau recommended, many entities go out to solicit proposals to have someone develop a plan. We put one together with spit and paper in Valencia County because we had about 10 minutes to get that done, but it'd be a better approach to have a have a contractor put together a plan, utilizing public input, figuring out what you'd like, what's needed in this community, whether it's down payment assistance, whether it's improvements to the homes, whatever. So I would ask for authorization to direct staff to solicit an RFP for an initiative, or for a developmental plan.
Mr. Chairman, Dave, what kind of money are you talking about?
I might refer that back to Ms. Unruh. We didn't do that in Valencia, so I don't know exactly what I'm asking for.
Mr. Jones, Commissioner Jones, the price range can vary. I think on the low end, $20,000 up to, you can spend as much money as you want. I think we have the scope of work really well defined, so it's simply entering that into a procurement template. But these consultants should be able to furnish something that's $20,000 to $30,000, and it helps if you put that in your budget so that they know what level of detail to go into.
Mr. Chairman, if I might ask one additional question, do you know if there are any grants available for that plan, for either through Department of Workforce Solutions or through Housing New Mexico?
Right now, I don't know. It's possible that we would open up a funding for that. We're kind of considering that in-house, looking at where to put funding for different programs. I do know our sister agency, the Finance Authority, offers loans for it. I don't know what the terms of the loans are, but right now I don't know of any actual dedicated funding sources, although we might, Housing New Mexico is considering it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you'd like us to follow back up with Housing New Mexico and see if they'd be willing to fund our development of a plan, I'd surely be happy to do that, or if the board would like to set some money aside for it.
So is there a motion to be modified there?
Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering about timelines. Are we into a timeline crunch? Do we have enough time to research that and find out if we've got a budget, get some ideas about what it would cost? $50,000 kind of bothers me.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Jones, I'll let Amber speak to that, but real quickly, there is no timeline from the state side. We're looking at funding from July 1, so we're not looking to touch money that's expiring in June 2025. We're going to be exploring an agreement with the State Department of Workforce Solutions for a contract that would start July 1. So from the county side, there shouldn't be any sort of temporal restrictions.
Chair and Commissioners, looking at our budget, I mean, yeah, 50,000 is a little high for our budget. Something between 20 and 30 would actually fit. We have money in the LACTIV funding still. We have about $3 million with them because we did invest some, and we have some interest on that as well. So we could fund it internally. That wouldn't be an issue.
I'm certainly in favor of doing something. My only, like I said, if it gets up to the 50,000, and I don't know what it's worth.
Commissioners, if I may suggest, we do have our budget meetings with each of you individually on Monday. If we want to hold off on this until the next meeting after we've reviewed some of the budget revenue numbers, we could do that as well.
Is that okay? I mean,
That's fine.
yeah.
So is there a motion to table item B?
Mr. Chair, I move that Mr. Table item B, direction to staff to solicit proposals for development on an affordable housing plan.
Is there a second?
Until the next meeting, could we get that? Yeah, that would be good. That gives, and I would second that.
Modified to the next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you again, ladies.
And Mr. Chairman, I will follow up with MFA and see if we can get some funding.
It does sound like a good deal, so.
Yeah, we would love to keep some of our kids here long term because that's been our biggest loss is our kids can't find gainful employment in housing and they move away. We're not unique, but it perplexes us.
Mexico's greatest export is our youth.
Yeah, next to doctors, huh? Good. We'll move on. Road closure request for New Mexico Spaceport Authority. Amber and the sheriff. I don't see the sheriff out there.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're supposed to have someone from Spaceport present this.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there she is. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
We are asking for some flexibility again for this month. We do have missions scheduled for April 10th, 17th, 23rd, 24th, 27th, and 28th. But due to the fact that weather impacts our missions, if a client's test article is having some type of issues or they're not feeling that it's a safe time for them to fly, or if White Sands Missile Range decides that we can't fly or something is a priority, sometimes we have to move certain mission dates.
In conversation with the sheriff, he is very pleased that he's fully staffed with his deputies, and he did express some flexibility in being able to accommodate your needs, so we'll see. This is a pretty standard deal as for the time of the launch. On our end is the north side and Doñana County on the south side, so this is a pretty simple deal. This is a kind of a perfunctory process that we go through. Mr. Attorney, you have any thoughts?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know, how do you provide notice to the public regarding the closure of the roads? I mean, we have folks that live out that way, folks that work out that way. How do you ensure that they're provided access?
Regarding that, we have a list of individuals that we send out notifications to. We also advise the employers, the ranchers that are in the area, as well as the contractor manager. He advises all the contractors that are currently on site and they advise their employees when there'll be a closure. Normally the closure lasts, it could be as short as 30 minutes to a couple of hours, and last time we had a closure, we only had 3 individuals waiting.
Mr. Chairman, would it be unreasonable to ask that maybe you post that information online or have a line that people can call into to find out if that road is closed?
Leadership of Spaceport America has considered that. They've spoken with the sheriff and with emergency management, and at this point they feel that that's asking for too many individuals to come out to maybe want to look at something and pose, we're trying to mitigate any hazards by closing the road.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, these are county's roads that are being closed, so ultimately it's the board that needs to make a decision as to what notice requirements are required when we close a road, just to make y'all aware. So if you're comfortable with that, that's fine. If you're not, then you can change that. Thank you so much.
Boss, Dillon?
Mr. Chairman, thanks for coming. I think everybody knows that I'm out there a lot, so we appreciate it every time a road's closed because I think something good is happening at Spaceport. But one of the concerns I do have, and since I kind of been affected by some of that, is I don't know that we're really notifying all of the affected ranchers in the area or the public. My sense is that we're not. And do you have a list of people that you notify?
I do, and I can provide you with contact information to the director of aerospace, and he can talk to you further about that.
That being,
Allinger.
okay. Yeah, and this is not a complaint, it's just trying to figure out a good system.
Definitely.
The only other issue that I see is that we'll set up a road closing, and you're right, there's a million things that can go wrong. And I'll give you a recent example. We knew, because it was my customer that was requesting the closure, that it wasn't gonna be closed on a Friday. It was to be closed on a Monday. And we knew on Friday, but we had evacuated all of our people for Monday. So I was able to kind of go around the system and say, it's okay, we can get in. And I think that's the only thing that, if I have a complaint, I'm not trying to complain, but I think that communication needs to go quicker, like to the sheriff, instead of finding out Monday morning, oh, by the way, we're not gonna close, because they have people to schedule as well.
Oh, definitely. I let the sheriff know immediately. I speak with Captain Apodaca on a regular basis. And additionally, our team sent out an email pretty much immediately when we got that notification.
Well, I can tell you on that one, Ryan didn't know, because I called him. And
Brian is not normally the person that I have on my list of individuals to notify or work primarily with the sheriff. Brian, I'm gonna rely on him in the event we have a bad day.
Okay. But like I said, I'm not complaining, we support you 100%, but if we could figure out a system where we know that all the ranchers are notified, and that, you know, that they, because they have feed trucks come in, they have, you know, exports out, in and out, but that's my only issue.
Of course,
Trying to make sure
definitely.
that communication is really well.
I'll give you the contact information to Alan Shirk. We did notify, I have an email with everybody who's notified.
I'll get it, I'll talk to Alan.
You have his contact information?
Oh, yeah, no, I work with Alan all the
Okay,
time, so
perfect.
I very, very much, we really appreciate Alan, so. But that's the only thing I heard, so.
Okay.
Sheriff, I see that you came back in. Do you have any thoughts on the road closures for Spaceport, flexibility for weather events and other things?
So yes, just to clarify, they do notify Captain Apodaca anytime there's any changes and when those happen. In talking with Ryan, I think, moving forward, we'll try to get that up on our Facebook and have Ryan shared out there too. Get it out on as many platforms as we can. And I'm willing to work with everybody on the best way to get that word out there. I do know that they have the contact list for the ranchers in the area, and it's my understanding they are notified.
Definitely.
So, that was our primary concern, and I know they take care of that. I don't know, maybe we can have the county manager, Ryan, and myself all put it out on our Facebook so we get the word out as much as we can. And then I'm open to any other suggestions, but they have communicated with us when those changes do happen.
Captain Apodaca is the primary contact though?
Yes.
Does he share that with Ryan and Amber?
I don't know that has been happening, but we can definitely make that happen.
Yeah, I think the more notice we get, the better, and we can put it on the county side as well as the emergency services and the sheriff's office Facebook.
Yes, sir.
That would be good.
We'd be happy to.
So, Mr. Chairman, just, I will tell you, I know one that isn't getting notified, and it's the Armandaris Ranch. The only reason I know that is because I work with them as well, so that's what would key me to saying, are we notifying everyone? Thanks.
We do need a motion and an approval of that road closure request, gentlemen.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the road closure request of Mexico Spaceport Authority for April.
Those days, absolutely, I second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. That motion passes. Petition for road vacation, VR 26-001, portion of Trout Road in Hot Springs Landing. Hello, Keith.
Morning. So we do have a request that was submitted a couple months ago. We did have the freeholders meeting on February the 27th. According to their review of the road, their recommendation to the board was to approve the vacation. And the reason was that there is no through access. It is the end of Trout Road. All property owners are in agreement. We do have, I believe it's four members or owners in the audience for any questions that you may have. And that there were safety reasons brought up by some of the owners as to their request. There's a gas meter that's kind of in towards the edge of the road that has been hit on at least one occasion. So that's one of the safety reasons that they're looking at. And that this portion of the road only impacts the owners that are in agreement together. And with that, I stand for any questions.
And the owners are here today?
There's 4 here present, yes.
Our original concern was for emergency access, and we understand that the gate will have that in place. with
Yes, they've
Standardized.
there will be a
fire
Knox
emergency
box
services.
on the gate to allow emergency vehicles.
You know, I think that we need to just recognize our freeholders. We call on them a lot on these things, and they go and make an evaluation and then give a decision back to the commission. We don't really have the opportunity to run out there and do that. And Keith, you do an excellent job of coordinating with the landowners. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
This has been a year or more that we've been considering this.
I believe one of the owners that's here in the audience approached me about 2 years ago originally. And it's just taken some time for another one of the owners. He's kind of taken and led the charge for them. And it's taken him a while to get everybody together and on board and to submit the joint request. And one of the stipulations was that we did need all of the owners to submit this. We couldn't do it without all of them being on board.
Well, I'm glad to see it come. We'll be able to take it off our road mileage inventory, and the maintenance is up to you folks from there on inside the gate. We appreciate, we respect private property very much, and so this is your option. We'll see if we can't get this implemented, depending on my two cohorts here. So, any questions or any ideas? No. Is there a motion?
Well, I've got a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, couple of questions. I did look into this a little bit, for another reason that just kind of fell into what thinking was, but you said that all the property owners were notified?
No,
The adjacent property
the
owners were.
standard that we've been using since I've been in this position has been to post a 2-week advertisement in the newspaper as well as on our county webpage, and then it has also been extended to the Facebook page.
So was State Parks ever invited?
If anyone saw the advertisement, that's how they would be notified.
So it'd be incumbent on a landowner, if they were adjacent to it, to have to read the paper and see a notification?
Yes.
And so if they were gone for a month, they would just not know? Okay. So State Parks wasn't notified, I know that. And then somebody said that there was an arrangement made with the emergency vehicles. Who was that arranged with?
I would have to defer that to one of the owners if
I don't understand what the question is.
they were asking if there was any contact with emergency services for the requirement of Knox box.
No, we just know from researching it, you have to have a 20-foot gate and they have to have emergency access, so we know from other projects we've done in the past that we need to have a Knox box. There'll be a camera, it'll be lit, it'll be well signed. Our biggest problem, commissioners, is if you look at Google Maps or if you look at Apple Maps, it shows that as being an entrance into the state park, which it never has been. There's a severe steep drop off that's cabled off. We have a never-ending supply of 40 and 50-foot long vehicles coming down there to try to get into the state park. At times, sometimes there's 3 or 4 of them trying to get in there at the same time. When they're trying to back up, there's no way to back up on our 0.02 of a mile of road. So we've had gas meters sheared off, we've had our gates run into, they come in at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning all summer long. And then even during the winter, we're having problems with 4-wheelers coming down there and tearing up the road course. So it's been a nonstop nuisance. I've been there a decade. Several of us have been there for more than 20 years, having 8 of us that are there. And there's absolutely no reason for anybody to ever want to go down that road. There's another state park entrance just 50 yards down the way on Bass if they want to walk into there. So, it shouldn't be a problem, but it's sure a problem for us. And we respectfully ask the commissioners to vote in favor of this because it's really hard to live there like this.
And I certainly appreciate that. But we've had an onslaught of road closures coming into the county. So there's 2 things. We can close it, and obviously there's a big benefit to y'all. It's a pretty nice piece of area. But my recollection was there was an access to the state parks. I've been here since '92, and they've done away with it. But one of my concerns is that if they ever do need access through, how do we get that? And I would think that if we reversed that and said, all of a sudden we need access through there, I'm suspecting that you'd want to sell that right away to back to the county if for some reason they needed it. And so I guess where I sit, the residents benefit well from the closure, and I'm not sure that there shouldn't be a compensation to the county for acquiring the land. Because my understanding is that the property would be deeded over on an equitable basis to the individual landowners. And to me, that's a gift, a governmental gift to a resident. And I'm not even sure, Mr. Attorney, is it even legal for the county to gift? Is there an anti-donation issue, or?
Mr. Chairman,
Tell me where I'm wrong.
if I might address that. So, in 98% of these cases, we have prescriptive easements. We don't have deeded easements. And so therefore, when we abandon our easement for the public to travel along that right of way, it generally reverts to the private property owners who are adjoining. In this case, things are a little bit different. It's within a subdivision, and Keith has shared the quitclaim deed from the developer to the county. And it wasn't dedicated for roads, it was just given to the county as property. So this is county property. That road is county property. So you're absolutely correct. Pursuant to that UBAR case, we couldn't just abandon that and walk away. We have our property there. This is one of those 2% of cases where it's a deeded easement, and so therefore we would have to utilize our disposition procedure set forth in 1362 to dispose of that, so as not to offend the anti-donation clause. So here, the vacation would be separate from what would happen with the property. The property would not revert back to the adjoining property owners because it was deeded to the county. It remains the county's property until we dispose of that property.
Well, what would preclude them from building something in that right of way? I mean, the way I see it, we're vacating it, and I was told specifically from one of the freeholders that the property would be divvied up amongst the landowners. Is that? That's what I was told.
That's only the case. That is not the case here.
Yeah, that was a potential option, was if we wanted to get a fair market value for the property that the county owns, and then dependent on a survey showing how it would be distributed amongst the adjoining owners, and then they would, based on that fair market value, pay their fair share of the road property so that they could get a deed from the county.
So we could start using it anytime, or? I guess I'm confused. If we vacate it, what are we actually vacating?
We're vacating the public's rights to reverse that road. We're not vacating the county's ownership of that property.
So we're vacating public use and not getting taxes out of it.
That's correct, because we own the property, it is not paying tax.
So why would we do that?
So what
Why wouldn't we just sell it?
well, that's what I would figure you would do, is that you would ultimately sell it.
And could that be part of this agreement?
This is not an agreement, this is a consideration of vacating the road. But I mean, if you want to direct us as part of vacation to examine and to proceed with disposing the property, we absolutely can, yes.
Well, I'm sure they'll start at zero and we'll start somewhere else in the negotiation, but why would we give up our negotiating? I think we have an obligation to serve the residents of the county. I don't think we should vacate a road and not realize the property taxes on it. It doesn't cost us anything to maintain it. It's very minimal. The complaints there are enforcement issues, signage telling them not to, it's a dead end, sheriff patrolling them, keeping the people out of it, whatever that is. A lot of your problems are enforcement issues because it's in a tough place to, and I appreciate that, and there's just not enough guys to go around, so.
Commissioner, there's signs all over the place that say there's no lake access and they've done nothing. For me, It just seems like not one of the property owners is gonna get any use of that land once it's vacated, because the road to get to the other houses further down the road, no one's gonna build on it, because you can't, because you need that road's not very wide as it is, and it's basically just a road to get to the other houses, so value-wise, it has the value of a road to get out of your house, but no one will ever be able to build on it, so it doesn't really have the value of the land, of the homes that are joining that road.
Well, it's about 3/4 of an acre, according to my map, but I guess the point is if we're responsible to the taxpayers here, we shouldn't give something away that doesn't, in other words, we shouldn't give it away could be a property tax value. If we're gonna give it away, sell it, get the property tax off of it, and then that makes sense. But if we ever wanna turn around and use something, and I'll kinda let the cat out of the bag a little bit, I'm proposing that we go in and do a regional plan with water and sewer in the Butte, in the Hot Springs Landing area. And that could very well end up being a pretty important easement to move product through there. And what I don't wanna get us in a position of, okay, you guys have it, now we need a right of way, and suddenly you're not gonna say, oh, here, we'll gift it to you.
We have no problem with it being a permanent easement all the way down the end, we'd said that from the very beginning.
But is it in the document here?
In what document?
I didn't see anywhere where that said that.
No, I think we would have no problem with that, is what I'm saying, because
You
obviously.
would today.
We were told we needed to have easements for electrical, easements for the cable, easements for the gas company. And if that one day we were lucky enough to, or unlucky enough to have water and sewer coming down through there, or whatever everyone's ideas on that, the easement's already there, so that's fine. From one end of the road to the other, there's an easement on it.
I think the easements are in the county right away, correct?
Well, not
So-
really. Our properties, we've got telephone poles well within our property line. I've got one at least 10 or 15 feet inside my fence, because that's the way it was laid out back in the day. So I've got them running through, our whole side of the street has them running well within our property. So again, easements if it's a question of having an easement on there, there's nobody in our 8 people would have a problem with the easement going right down the road, because we already were told we had to do that anyway. So I don't care what's in the easement. If you need to put a sewer line for a dump station down below, that's fine, because no one's ever gonna build on it.
So my issue is that, but the equitable transfer. That's my issue. Is it equitable to gift it, or is it unequitable, not ethically?
Is it equitable for you to charge us for a road that we can never build on, that has your guys' sewer lines, water lines, cables and everything else running through it, that we aren't benefiting from at all? It's the same thing. Unless there was some sort of adjusted, price, because of the fact I can't build my house on it. I'm using it to drive a car on it and get out of there, and you guys are using it for running your utilities into it. Maybe there's some sort of.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to differentiate though, the difference between the vacation and the disposition of the property. Those are gonna have to be different actions irrespective. And to the extent that the board was inclined to dispose of the property, you could certainly reserve whatever easements you needed for wastewater and water through that stretch, and then sell the property subject to those easements. But the matter before the board today is the issue of vacation only. But you can include conditions on it. I understand what you're getting at.
I guess what my issue is that, yeah, they're two different dispositions, but one without the other doesn't work for me. So for that reason, I don't know that I would support this until we had a clear direction on what's equitable for the taxpayers. And it's as simple as that. It's a piece of property. We're transferring from our ownership somewhere else, possibly, or we're just vacating an easement in which they get a benefit from it as well. So it's just a business issue with me. So that's it. I'm done.
So what's our action from this point, Mr. Attorney?
pursuant to 6754, you guys, because you have a unanimous decision of the Board of Freeholders recommending vacation, they examined whether or not the road was no longer needed or where the burdens outweigh the benefits. They recommended vacation based on those criteria. And it sits within the board's discretion whether or not to vacate it. Because they've recommended vacation, you can either decide to vacate it or decide not to.
And how would we deal with the property value issue that Commissioner Jones has raised?
Gosh, I mean, I guess, as I mentioned, there are two different items. We're not giving up our interest in that real property. That real property still remains the county's. We're just saying that this public right to traverse that road is no longer. I mean, so that's what the vacation entails. So the board will then have to decide what it wants to do with that property, whether or not it wants to have it appraised and sold to the adjoining property owners, reserving certain easements so that we can address future development like wastewater and other utilities, or whether or not it just wants to maintain the property and hold the property out there. Continue to let these folks continue to use it as their road.
My personal opinion is that this is not just an inconvenience issue, it's a property damage that has been repeated. We're not gonna post a deputy out there. I mean, that's beyond any scope, but it is a safety measure, and it is a disruption of private property. We do have some documented late night four-wheelers buzzing around down there, and I think that's an issue. We have given this to our freeholders to review, and they have been on site and evaluated it. Keith has worked with these folks for 2 years. So I think that we can consider, as a commission, the vacation issue. If we want to make a contingent on property disposal, that has to be considered by the county. I think that would be appropriate if my fellow commissioners desire to do that. But this has been a long time coming, and you folks have been pretty patient. You're willing to assume the responsibility for maintenance. There's emergency access that's guaranteed. I would ask if there's a motion to vacate the road.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I want to talk about the emergency access. I did make a call to the fire chief at Elephant Butte. He knew nothing about this. He was not contacted, he didn't know anything about it, he has a certain number of things that they need. And so, and the fact that State Parks wasn't notified, they're a big player, they own property on 3 sides of this. And so, I mean, if you guys wanna go, to satisfy me, if you guys wanna go work that out later, you may get 2 votes here anyway, but I'll stick to my guns on the fact that it isn't all represented as I was told. And that is a problem with me. I have another issue that I've discussed with the county manager that I don't really wanna bring that up appropriate at this time, but if it was me, and maybe I'll just do it, if it was me, I'd like to see some of these other details worked out. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll just move the table until the next meeting.
Is there a second to table? Motion to table is denied for lack of a second. Is there a motion to vacate the road? So moved. Is there a second? I will second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I oppose, and I wanna reiterate my reasons, is that there was details left out, and I'm not necessarily opposed to what you wanna do, and I understand it. I also understand that I think this was leased land property from before, so there was some pretty good considerations given to those landowners to start with. So they've had a pretty nice deal out there so far. One of my bigger issues is the State Parks wasn't at the table, and I contacted them as well, and they weren't there, and I think that we owed it to them to
understand the fire department. I researched the state fire laws for gate requirements for apartments and everything else. And I'll be happy to do that with the Elton Butte Fire Chief. But the state parks, I still don't understand what they have anything to do with it. There's another gate right around the corner, not 50 yards away from our property, that is accessible for pedestrians and for traffic that used to be open. What's the state park have to do with this?
I don't think that's your decision to decide what state parks wants to do where their gates. Just like if you had joined my property and you said, well, you don't need that gate, so you need to close it. It's really my decision whether I close it or not. And that's all I would have expected is that all the adjacent landowners who have significant reason to be there to have some cooperation by the landowners. You know, you want them to come in there and keep people from running up to your house and raising hell and partying. And so you're asking them for services to help that. And I just think that the cooperation between the county and the state of New Mexico should be exactly that. We should treat them with respect and understanding. And that's those are my reasons. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think the process needs to be correct. And it needs to be pristine, and as long as I'm sitting here, that's the way it'll be.
We'll take care of it.
So, with all due respect, you deserve a reason for my vote.
I want to ask you a question regarding Mr. Jones' comments. Is there any access to the state park through that land now?
No, sir. And it's about a 40-foot drop off, so it's.
And is it blocked off in any means where it gets to the state park?
It has cable. It's had cable there for years.
Thank you. Appreciate that. We'll go on to the next issue. Contracts, agreements, and procurement. MOU, thank you gentlemen for coming. MOU between the Office of the Secretary of State and Sierra County for the primary election. Does this go to our clerk? Okay, Amy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is a memorandum of understanding between the Secretary of State and Sierra County. It's a agreement that we do every election. This one in particular is for projected costs for the incurred administration of the primary election in the amount of $22,230.27, so that I can run the election.
Do it every election.
Every election, yeah.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
I would move.
I second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
On RFP 2026-01-001 for pest control services, Manager Vaughn.
Thank you, Chair. I'll hand it over to Barbara Bencomo.
Hello, Barbara.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and Manager Vaughn. Yes, today we are requesting approval of a contract for pest control services with Bosque Pest Control LLC for 1 year with up to 3 additional 1-year terms. The county needs pest control services in 17 facilities. That includes 11 volunteer fire department facilities. In order to get best value for the services, we issued an RFP 2026-01001 on January 8, 2025, and it closed on February 5th, 2026. 5 proposals were received. The evaluation committee reviewed responsive proposals and recommended the award to Bosque Pest Control LLC. So this action is being brought forward to you all for approval of this contract. And I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Questions, gentlemen? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I would second it. Could I ask some questions along that line?
What, you go ahead, ask the question.
Yeah, so the second set. Did I see in here about, weed removal?
There were some value-added services that we also solicited along with the primary pest control services. And those are for all of the facilities that are identified in Appendix 2 of the contract. That includes the sheriff's shooting range and the array ball field. So those would be as needed or as requested. Sometimes those would be handled internally. by our facilities department, but if there were additional services needed, we'd be able to contract with this, or have this vendor provide those services in addition to the regular monthly pest control services.
And Ernie basically does that, correct?
Yes. He does, and this, to adding the weed removal to this contract was sometimes they get ahead of us and we have a hard time catching up, so that we'd be able to hire a contractor to go out and do the weed and pest control at those areas.
That's for when we get rain.
Yeah. Yeah, right now it's not a big problem, but it could be.
As needed.
Did you have any estimates of that cost for weed removal? I mean, you're talking, if we're talking that many facilities, that could be a pretty big deal.
Right, so each of the vendors had the locations of all of the facilities that we requested services to be provided at. So they were able to come up with their own proposed costs for those services, and that was what was reviewed by the evaluation committee.
And so this is an RFP, not a sealed bid?
That's correct. It's an RFP. I mentioned this is to get the best value for the county, and so that enabled us to evaluate service capability references in addition to the cost for the services that were requested.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Barbara. We'll go to resolutions, ordinances, and proclamations. Resolution 2026-22, Sierra County Road Miles, Mr. Neely. And Keith, you've got a part of this too, don't you? The GIS portion?
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, this is just our yearly road certification for our mileage. Something we gotta do every year.
And after doing the review for this year and creating the map for the state, for him to submit to the state showing the roads, and preparing the list of roads with the mileage, our mileage from last year remains the same as 565.1 miles.
I do note that AO 13 is still on our inventory until we get that transferred.
That's 27 miles. And altogether there we'll have, we have 81 miles of paved or chip seal road. So 27 miles of that is actually.
Has our inventory changed since last year?
Yeah, just the chip seal projects, and we'll actually end up with about 0.6, almost a little over half a mile more of pavement this year.
We see a maintenance benefit from that, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, any questions? Is there a motion?
Oh, absolutely, I support.
A second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion is approved. Thank you. Resolution 2026-23, fiscal year 26 budget adjustment. Amber?
Sure.
And Jessica, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners, Manager Vaughn. Today's resolution for our FY 26 budget amendment includes a grant that we received from the Cultural Properties Restoration Fund for the Hillsborough Community Center in the amount of $189,300. The revenue was received in February, so now we're just amending the budget to increase that revenue budget and add the expense. We're also amending our NMDOT, the LGRF fund. You've already approved those contracts and the match waivers for the SP and CAP funding. So we're increasing the revenue by that amount, so $45,719 and $46,585 respectively. The next item we're amending is in our grant fund. This is a carryover from fiscal year 24 for the purchase of a brush truck for Monticello Fire. We're increasing that budget from the existing fund balance. The revenue was received a couple of fiscal years back,
And now that we've actually received the unit, we're increasing the budget to cover that, payment. So those funds just sat in the fund balance. The, next adjustment that we're making is for the resource management plan. It's also an increase from the fund balance. This is gonna be budgeted in our general fund for the amount of $92,119. And I will stand for questions.
Questions or comments, gentlemen?
Chairman, I move the approval of the budget adjustment. Number, do you need the number on here for the record? Resolution 2026-23.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion is approved. Thank you, Jessica. Ordinance 2026-001, proclamation restricting open and controlled burns in unincorporated areas. Ryan and Attorney Payfield.
Hello again, Chairman, Commissioners, Manager Vaughn. Some people weren't present during the public hearing this morning, but we discussed, due to current atmospheric conditions, the current drought conditions, or below normal precipitation fall and our above ground temperatures, that, would like to implement a burn ban due to some raw data and factual information, and it's definitely with our neighboring counties and our other state federal agencies that are implementing burn restrictions here within this month. This ban, this ordinance, is just it's a clarification on it. It's just a little more communication through our dispatch center with me. Agricultural folks are going to have to go through the permit process. It's a notification. They're not.
But they still can burn,
Yes.
depending on conditions, yeah.
Depending on atmospheric conditions, I already spoke, there's a 15-15 rule. So if it's below 15% humidity, it's recommended not to burn just because fire activity is increased. Above 15-mile-an-hour winds, not permitted to burn because of fire activity increases significantly. If the threshold is good, if it's favorable, we allow it to burn. It's the same process, everyone's just calling in, to see if they can or can't burn. It's just a little more thorough when people contact me. It's just a little more thorough about what are you burning, where do you have a plan, it's just, because when right now, people call and say it's an open burn, we know their location, their telephone number, and that's it. We don't know, if they're burning, if they have anything in control, or, it's just kind of a little more wild. This helps us out, just a good educational piece, and helps us out when we get into further drought conditions, and wildland season is amongst us, especially when we get into our fireworks restrictions in the future here. Our neighboring counties are going into the restrictions here March 23rd. Forest Service is going into restrictions level 1 March 23rd. Probably going to go into level 2 here right before turkey hunt, which will be April 15th. So yeah, our neighboring counties are following suit, and we just want to protect our residents. I'll stand for any questions. Anyone needs any further clarification?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add 2 points. In section 4, number 1, this ordinance, unlike most ordinances, will go into effect immediately because there's an emergency declaration that's attached to it. Number 2, section 4 provides for repeal in a non-traditional way as well. While it can be repealed by the Board of County Commissioners, section 4 also permits the county manager in consultation with the emergency management officer to repeal the ordinance. So I just want to call the board's attention to those 2 points.
Questions or comments, gentlemen? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve ordinance 2026-001 and proclamation restricting open and controlled burns in the unincorporated areas of Sierra County.
Is there a second? I will second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I oppose, and I'd like to explain why. Again, as we talked about earlier, I think that putting an additional burning on the agricultural side is wrong. They haven't been a problem in the past. You cited one piece where they were. And I'm really worried about, a penalty that says, if they violate it, they can be punished 90 days in jail and a $300 fine. I don't think that's the way we go with people who are providing services that they provide in this county, and I think they're very, very much so responsible people. There are some that aren't, but that's the reason for my no vote on it, and I support them. burning bans in general, but I just don't support attacking business like we just keep attacking business. Vote for it.
May I provide some clarification? So historically, if people are burned and they're not notified dispatch, the first time it's an educational piece, we talk to them, you know, deputies will talk to them. Hey, you know, make sure you call in, usually addresses and corrects the issue pretty quick. It's the repeat offenders, 2, 3, 4 times that they know they need to call it in for accountability, that then if it's the deputy's discretion to enforce that. So most of the time, it's a good discussion piece, educational piece, and it helps out a lot.
And it sets up the perfect selective enforcement piece, because it doesn't say that in the ordinance. And if that's your intent to say, hey, the first time we're gonna give you a break, that's one thing. Put it in there that you're gonna put them in jail or fine them $300, because maybe they didn't think to call you, or they needed to do it right away, or whatever that is just unacceptable county government, process. That just unacceptable in my view. I think we're here to support business and support our people in the community and support people to make a living, and we're not here to be the cop on everything they do. I'm just shocked that whenever we do these things like this, that every time we do something, it's against the business and responsible people. That's the problem. They're not the guys coming through here shooting fireworks out on the river, starting big fires. Those guys you ought to go after. But you know what? We don't catch those guys either. So the only ones we catch is the guy that's standing there fighting the fire, and then we get him. And we get after him. Because he didn't leave, he didn't abandon it. He stayed right there to do what he was supposed to do. And he's got insurance in place if he harms his neighbor. That's the issue I have. There's a process in place that's pristine, and this isn't it. Thank you.
Anything further?
Well, I think our goal is to promote public safety and cooperation. It takes a citation and a court process. We don't throw people in jail for burning, and that's a process that we value. I spent 34 years chasing fires in the Forest Service. Some of the largest fires that I was on were lit in the highest risk hazard periods, when people just took it on themselves to go ahead and ignite. And the fires went off of private land onto public land and over the hill. This is a reasonable measure. I think that we are eliciting cooperation. We'll continue to do that. Ryan, I expect you and the sheriff to work together so that we can see that in. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Ryan, thank you for working with me on this, by the way. You've been helpful when I needed.
And just to set the record straight with everyone in the room and our residents, as I said before in the public hearing, I don't wake up thinking, I'm not gonna let people burn. My ultimate job, my priority, my duties in this position is to protect the residents, their assets, their livelihood, and their property. So I want people to know that any decision I make is never for personal gain, it's all for residential protection, for their assets and everything. So I want everyone to know that I present my facts and my raw data to the board for that reason. So I just want people to know this has nothing to do with a personal decision or an opinion or a personal gain. So I just want people to know that. I don't wake up in the morning for it. I research, and I follow suit with our neighbors and our agencies. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate your efforts, Ron. We have no executive session.
Sir.
The next regular meeting of the county commission is Tuesday, April 21st at 10 a.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
We are adjourned.